A single mother collapsed from fatigue on a bus. She opened her eyes to a CEO staring at her and, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry," Maya whispered, jerking her head up from the stranger's shoulder. Her cheek burned with embarrassment as she realized she'd been drooling slightly on his expensive suit jacket. The man beside her didn't look angry, just surprised. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and even in the dim bus lighting, she could see his clothes probably cost more than she made in a month. He was holding a leather briefcase on his lap, and something about the logo made her stomach twist. "It's fine," he said quietly, his voice deeper than she expected. "You looked like you needed the rest." Maya rubbed her eyes, trying to focus. The bus was nearly empty now, just a few night shift workers heading home like her. She must have been out for at least 20 minutes. The exhaustion hit her again like a wave. 15 hours on her feet between 3 different jobs, and tomorrow she'd do it all over again. "I work 3 jobs, she found herself explaining, though she wasn't sure why. Hospital cafeteria in the morning, office cleaning in the afternoon, diner until closing. My daughter's been sick and the bills just keep coming." He nodded and she caught something in his expression that looked almost like understanding. "That sounds incredibly difficult." Maya was about to thank him for being kind when her eyes focused on his briefcase. The gold lettering made her blood run cold. Sterling Development Group. "You work for Sterling Development?" The words came out sharper than she intended. His posture stiffened. "I own Sterling Development." The bus lurched to a stop, but Maya barely noticed. This was him. This was the man who was destroying her neighborhood, her daughter's lifeline, everything they depended on. "You're Gabriel Sterling." It wasn't a question. "Yes." Maya stood up so fast she almost lost her balance. The other passengers glanced over, sensing the tension. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to people? What you're taking away from families like mine?" Gabriel's jaw tightened. "I run a business. I develop properties that community center you're tearing down. That's where my 6-year-old daughter goes after school while I work. That's where she gets help with homework when she's too sick from chemo to keep up. That's where 70-year-old Mrs. Chen learns English and plays cards with friends because she'd be alone all day otherwise. I understand you're upset, but no, you don't understand anything." Maya's voice cracked. "You see numbers on a spreadsheet. I see faces. I see the place that keeps my family alive while my little girl fights cancer." The bus stopped again and Maya grabbed her purse. Her hands were shaking with exhaustion and rage. "You want to build luxury condos that none of us can afford, in a neighborhood where families have lived for generations. You're not just taking a building, Mr. Sterling, you're taking hope." Gabriel started to stand, but Maya was already moving toward the door. "Wait, I'd like to—" "There's nothing you could possibly say that would matter to me." The doors hissed open, and Maya stepped into the cold night air. Through the window, she saw Gabriel watching her, his expression unreadable. The briefcase sat in his lap like a barrier between his world and hers. As the bus pulled away, Maya realized she was crying, not just from anger, but from the crushing weight of knowing that even falling asleep for 20 minutes had led her straight to the man who held her family's future in his hands. She walked the 3 blocks home, past the community center that had a demolition notice taped to its front door, and tried not to think about how gentle his voice had been before she knew who he was. Maya burst through the community center doors at 7 the next morning, still wearing her diner uniform from the night before. The smell of fresh coffee and pancakes from the breakfast program filled the air, but she barely noticed. "We need to talk," she announced to the room full of parents dropping off their kids. Mrs. Chen looked up from helping her grandson with his backpack. "Maya, what's wrong?" "I met him, Gabriel Sterling. The man who's trying to destroy this place." The room went quiet. Even the kids stopped their chatter. "What did he say?" asked Marcus, a single dad who worked construction when he could find jobs. "He said he runs a business. Like that explains everything." Maya's voice was bitter. "Like Sophia's tutoring sessions and Mrs. Rodriguez's job training classes are just inconveniences." 20 minutes later, Maya had rallied half the neighborhood. They made signs, called the local news, and started a petition. But as she watched Sophia color quietly in the corner, too tired from yesterday's treatment to join the other kids, Maya felt the weight of how little power they actually had. Meanwhile, across town, Gabriel sat in his corner office, staring at architectural plans he couldn't focus on. The woman from the bus, Maya, Her words kept echoing in his head. He'd barely slept, replaying their conversation over and over. "Sir?" His assistant knocked on the door. "The board meeting starts in 5 minutes." Gabriel nodded but didn't move. Instead, he pulled up Google Maps and typed in the address of the community center. He'd seen the property appraisals and demographic studies, but he'd never actually looked at it as a place where real people spent their days. The board meeting was a disaster. Gabriel found himself distracted, asking questions about relocation assistance for displaced families that made his investors uncomfortable. "Since when do we care about social impact?" asked board member Harrison Webb. "We're not a charity, Gabriel. What if we were more thoughtful about—" "Thoughtful doesn't pay dividends," Webb interrupted. "The community center property is prime real estate. We demo next month and break ground on the luxury towers by spring." After the meeting, Gabriel did something he'd never done before. He drove to Maya's neighborhood. The community center was smaller than he'd expected, wedged between a laundromat and a corner grocery store. But it was busy. Kids played in the small courtyard, while their parents attended what looked like an English class through the windows. He parked across the street and watched. An elderly Asian woman, Mrs. Chen, Maya had mentioned, was teaching a group of adults to use computers. Teenagers worked at tables with tutors. In the corner, he spotted a little girl with a pink headscarf coloring alone. Sophia. It had to be Maya's daughter. Gabriel's chest tightened. He'd been sick as a kid too, in and out of foster homes, missing school constantly. Mrs. Patterson at the Riverside Community Center had been the only adult who'd made him feel like he mattered. She'd helped him with homework, made sure he had meals, and believed in him when no one else did. That building had been demolished 15 years ago for a shopping mall. His phone buzzed, a text from Maya, though he didn't know how she'd gotten his number. "If you have any conscience at all, come see what you're destroying. 6 p.m. Community Center." Gabriel stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back, "I'll be there." That evening, Maya waited nervously in the community center's main room. She'd set up chairs in a circle and made coffee, not sure if Gabriel would actually show up. He arrived at exactly 6 o'clock, looking out of place in his tailored suit among the folding chairs and hand-drawn posters. "Thank you for coming," Maya said, her voice carefully neutral. Gabriel nodded, his eyes taking in the room. "It's not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Something less alive." For the next hour, Maya introduced him to the families who used the center. Mrs. Chen showed him the computer lab, where she'd learned to email her grandchildren in Taiwan. Marcus explained how the job training program had helped him get his contractor's license. Sophia shyly showed Gabriel her art project, a drawing of the community center with a big red heart over it. "Why did you really come?" Maya asked as the others filtered out. Gabriel was quiet for a long moment. "Because I used to be that sick kid in the corner, and someone like you saved my life." Maya felt something shift in her chest. "What happened to your community center?" "Gone, torn down for profit." He looked at Sophia's drawing again. "I swore I'd never be powerless like that again." "So you became the person who tears down other people's safe places?" The question hung in the air between them. Gabriel had no answer that didn't make him sound like exactly the kind of man he'd promised himself he'd never become. Maya's phone rang at 2 a.m., jolting her from the first real sleep she'd had in days. The caller ID showed Sophia's doctor. "Ms. Rodriguez, I need you to bring Sophia to the emergency room. Her white blood cell count has dropped significantly." Maya's hands shook as she bundled Sophia into her coat. Her daughter was burning with fever, barely conscious as Maya carried her to the street to flag down a taxi. At the hospital, they waited in the sterile hallway while doctors ran tests. Sophia lay small and pale in the bed, hooked up to monitors that beeped constantly. "The experimental treatment we discussed, we need to start it immediately," Dr. Martinez explained. "But insurance won't cover it. We're looking at about $40,000. Maya felt the world tilt. "I don't have $40,000. "There are programs, assistance funds. How long do those take?" Dr. Martinez's expression said everything. They didn't have that kind of time. Maya spent the next 3 hours making phone calls to relatives who had nothing, banks that wouldn't listen, and charity organizations with waiting lists months long. By dawn, she was sitting in the hallway crying into her hands when someone cleared their throat. "Maya?" She looked up to see Gabriel Sterling standing there, still in his expensive suit, but with his tie loosened and his hair messed up, like he'd been running his hands through it. "What are you doing here?" "I heard about Sophia. One of the nurses knows my assistant." He sat down in the plastic chair beside her. "How is she?" "Dying, probably, unless I can come up with $40,000 by tomorrow." Maya's voice was flat, emotionless. She'd cried herself out. Gabriel was quiet for a moment. "What if I told you an anonymous donor had already covered it?" Maya's head snapped up. "What?" "The treatment, the hospital stay, everything. It's handled." "That was you." It wasn't a question. "Does it matter who?" Maya stared at him. "Why would you do that? You don't even know us." Gabriel looked through the window at Sophia's room, where the little girl was finally sleeping peacefully. "When I was 8, I had pneumonia, spent 2 weeks in a hospital. No one came to visit except Mrs. Patterson from the community center. She brought me books and sat with me every day after her shift." "You were in foster care?" 5 different homes in 3 years. Mrs. Patterson was the only constant. She made me believe I was worth something." He turned to look at Maya. "I see her in what you do for Sophia, for everyone at that center." Maya felt tears starting again, but different ones this time. "I can't accept your money." "It's not my money. It's from the Sterling Foundation. We help sick kids." "You have a foundation?" Gabriel almost smiled. "Started it 10 years ago. We just don't publicize it much." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Sophia sleep. Finally, Maya spoke. "I researched you after that night on the bus. I know about your ex-wife." Gabriel's jaw tightened. "What about her?" "The article said she left you for someone else, that she took half your company in the divorce." "She took more than that." Gabriel's voice was barely above a whisper. "She was sleeping with my former business partner. They planned it for months, took our biggest clients with them when they left, nearly bankrupted me." "Is that why you're so focused on the luxury developments, to prove something?" Gabriel was quiet for so long, Maya thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Maybe. I never thought about it that way." Sophia stirred in her bed, and Maya stood to check on her. When she came back, Gabriel was still there. "The community center," Maya said. "You could stop the demolition." "It's not that simple. The board, the investors, but you could try." Gabriel looked at her, really looked at her. Maya's hair was messy from the hospital pillow, her waitress uniform wrinkled from sleeping in chairs. But her eyes were fierce with love for her daughter and hope for her community. "Yeah," he said finally, "I could try." When Sophia woke up an hour later, the first thing she saw was her mother holding hands with a man in a fancy suit. "Mama, who's that?" "That's Gabriel, baby. He's a friend." Sophia studied Gabriel with the directness only children possess. "Are you the one who's helping me get better?" Gabriel's throat tightened. "The doctors are helping you get better. I just made sure they could." Sophia smiled, the first real smile Maya had seen from her in weeks. "Thank you, Gabriel. When I'm better, will you come to the community center? I want to show you my art wall. I'd like that very much." As Gabriel left the hospital that morning, Maya watched him go and felt something she hadn't experienced in years. The possibility that not all powerful people used their power to hurt others. Maybe some of them were just scared kids who'd grown up and forgotten how to trust. Gabriel's board meeting started badly and got worse from there. "What do you mean, delay the demolition?" Harrison Webb's voice rose an octave. "We have contractors lined up, investors expecting returns, and permits that expire if we don't move forward. I'm asking for 60 days to explore alternatives," Gabriel said, keeping his voice steady. "Community partnerships, mixed-use development that includes affordable housing." "Since when do we care about affordable housing?" Board member Patricia Mills interrupted. "Gabriel, what's gotten into you?" Gabriel thought about Sophia's drawing on his office wall, about Maya's exhausted face in the hospital hallway. "I'm considering the long-term impact of our decisions." "The long-term impact is profits," Webb snapped. "Or have you forgotten that's why we're in business?" After the meeting, Gabriel's assistant knocked on his door. "Sir, there's a woman here to see you. She says it's about the community center." Maya walked into his office looking determined and nervous. She'd clearly dressed up, a simple black dress instead of her work uniforms, but Gabriel could see she was still wearing her diner shoes. "The board said no," Gabriel said before she could speak. "I figured. That's not why I'm here." Maya sat down across from his desk. "I want to understand something." Why did you really start helping people? The foundation paying for Sophia's treatment, what's that about? Gabriel leaned back in his chair. Does it matter? It matters to me. He was quiet for a long moment. After Mrs. Patterson died, I promised myself I'd make enough money to help kids like I used to be. But somewhere along the way, making money became more important than helping people. Until now. Until I met a woman on a bus who reminded me what I'd forgotten. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. Gabriel, I know this is complicated. I know you have every reason not to trust me. But I can't stop thinking about you. Before Maya could respond, Gabriel's phone rang. His assistant's voice came through the speaker. Mr. Sterling, Sophia Rodriguez is online too. She says it's important. Gabriel looked at Maya, who nodded with a smile. Hi, Sophia. What's up? Gabriel. Sophia's voice was bright and energetic. Guess what? My blood tests came back really good today. Mama cried happy tears. That's wonderful news. I made you a picture. It's you and Mama and me at the community center. We're all smiling. Gabriel's throat tightened. I can't wait to see it. When are you coming to visit? I miss you. Maya watched Gabriel's face soften completely. I miss you too, kiddo. How about this weekend? After Sophia hung up, the office felt too quiet. She's been asking about you every day, Maya said softly. She's an amazing kid. She likes you, and Sophia doesn't like many people. Gabriel stood up and walked to the window overlooking the city. Maya, if I fight this demolition, I could lose my company. The board is already questioning my leadership. And if you don't fight it, you'll lose something else. What? Maya joined him at the window. The person you used to be, the one Mrs. Patterson believed in. They stood close enough that Gabriel could smell Maya's shampoo, something simple and clean that reminded him of home, though he'd never had one. When she looked up at him, he saw something in her eyes that made his chest ache. I'm scared, he admitted. Of the board? Of this. Of caring about you and Sophia and then losing everything anyway. Maya reached up and touched his face gently. Some things are worth the risk. Gabriel kissed her then, soft and desperate, like a man finding water in the desert. Maya kissed him back, and for a moment the corporate office disappeared, and they were just two people who'd found something unexpected and precious. When they broke apart, Gabriel rested his forehead against hers. If I do this, if I really fight for the community center, will you be there with me? Yes, Maya whispered. But Gabriel, you have to do it for the right reasons. Not for me, not to prove something to your ex-wife. For the families who need that place. And if I lose everything, Maya smiled, then you'll still have something more valuable than money. What's that? People who believe in you. That weekend, Gabriel spent Saturday afternoon at the community center, helping Sophia with an art project, while Maya organized a fundraiser. He watched Maya coordinate volunteers, settle disputes between teenagers, and somehow make everyone feel heard and valued. Harrison Webb called that evening while Gabriel was having dinner with Maya and Sophia at their small apartment. The board met without you today, Webb said without preamble. We're concerned about your recent decisions. If you can't separate your personal feelings from business judgment, we'll find someone who can. Gabriel looked at Sophia, who was showing him her homework, and Maya, who was pretending not to listen while she did dishes. I understand your position, Harrison. Do you? Because frankly, Gabriel, you've changed. And not for the better from a business perspective. After Gabriel hung up, Sophia climbed into his lap. Are you in trouble because of us? Gabriel hugged her close. No, sweetheart. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. But as he said it, Gabriel wondered if he was about to lose everything he'd spent 15 years building for something he'd known only a few weeks, and whether that might be the best decision he'd ever made. Gabriel's resignation letter was 3 sentences long. Effective immediately, I am stepping down as CEO of Sterling Development Group. I can no longer support business practices that prioritize profit over people. I wish the company success in its future endeavors. He printed it, signed it, and walked into the boardroom where the emergency meeting was already in session. You can't be serious, Harrison Webb said after reading the letter. You're throwing away everything you've built. I'm choosing what matters most. Patricia Mills laughed bitterly. A woman you've known for a month and a building full of people who contribute nothing to society? Gabriel's jaw clenched. Those people have names. They have families, dreams, struggles. They're not just obstacles to your profit margins. This is about that waitress, isn't it? Webb's voice was cruel. Gabriel, you're having a midlife crisis. Don't destroy your legacy over some fantasy. My legacy? Gabriel stood up slowly. My legacy is that I became exactly the kind of person who would have destroyed the place that saved my life as a kid. That ends today. 2 hours later, Gabriel sat in his empty office, boxing up personal items. His assistant had already been reassigned. Security was waiting to escort him out. Maya found him there, having heard the news from a friend who worked in the building's coffee shop. You actually did it, she said, standing in his doorway. Yeah, I actually did it. And they're still going to demolish the center. Gabriel's laugh was hollow. Webb is the new CEO. Demolition starts Monday. Apparently I was the only thing slowing them down. Maya sat down across from him, the same chair where she'd challenged him to fight for what mattered. I'm sorry. Don't be. You were right about everything. I was right that you should fight for the community. I wasn't right that you should sacrifice your entire life. Gabriel looked at her, this woman who'd changed everything just by falling asleep on his shoulder. Maya, I need to tell you something. I've been getting job offers all week. Other development companies, investment firms. But they all want the old Gabriel Sterling, the one who doesn't ask inconvenient questions about people. What are you going to do? Before Gabriel could answer, his phone rang. It was Sophia. Gabriel, are you coming to movie night at the center tonight? We're watching my favorite princess movie. Gabriel closed his eyes. Sweetheart, I have some bad news. The community center is closing on Monday. The silence on the other end was heartbreaking. Forever? Sophia's voice was small. I'm afraid so. Did you try to stop them? Yes, I tried. Then it's not your fault. Sophia's wisdom at 6 years old humbled him. Will you still come to movie night, even if it's the last one? Gabriel looked at Maya, who was crying silently. Yes, kiddo, I'll be there. That evening, the community center was packed. Everyone knew it was their last night together in this place. Mrs. Chen had brought homemade dumplings. Marcus and his construction crew had fixed the broken tiles in the bathroom one last time. The teenagers had made a photo collage of all their memories. Gabriel sat between Maya and Sophia on the worn couch, watching a princess movie he'd never heard of, but that Sophia narrated in whispers throughout. Halfway through, Sophia climbed into his lap. Gabriel, when I grow up, I want to help people like you do. Like I do? You saved me when I was sick, and you tried to save our center. That's what helpers do. Gabriel's throat tightened. Around them, families were saying goodbye to a place that had been their anchor, their safety net, their community heart. Tomorrow, these people would be scattered, looking for new places to belong. After the movie ended and families started leaving, Maya walked Gabriel to his car. What happens now? She asked. I don't know. For the first time in my adult life, I have no plan. Maya took his hand. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Gabriel pulled her close, memorizing the feeling of her in his arms. I love you, Maya. I know it's too soon to say that, and I know I've made a mess of everything, but I need you to know. I love you too, she whispered against his chest. And you didn't make a mess of everything. You chose love over fear. That's the bravest thing anyone can do. They stood there in the parking lot of the doomed community center, holding each other as the last families drove away. Gabriel had lost his company, his fortune, and his certainty about the future. But as Sophia waved at him from Maya's apartment window 3 blocks away, he realized he'd gained something infinitely more valuable. He'd remembered who he used to be, before success had made him forget what actually mattered. Monday morning, Gabriel woke up in his expensive apartment and made coffee in his designer kitchen, watching bulldozers arrive at the community center on the news. The reporter called it urban renewal and progress. Gabriel called it heartbreak. His phone rang. The caller ID showed Maya's number. Maya's. Turn to channel 7, she said without preamble. Gabriel switched channels to see Maya standing in front of the community center with a crowd of people facing down the bulldozers. We're not leaving, Maya was telling the reporter. This building represents hope for families like mine. We're going to make them push us out of the way if they want to tear down our community. Gabriel was already reaching for his car keys when Maya's voice came through the phone again. Gabriel, we could use some help down here. He was out the door before she finished the sentence. Gabriel arrived at the community center to find 50 people linking arms in front of the bulldozers. Maya stood at the center, holding Sophia's hand, facing down Harrison Webb and a crew of frustrated construction workers. "This is private property," Webb was saying to the police officers who'd been called to the scene. "These people are trespassing." "Actually," Gabriel said, walking through the crowd, "they're not." Webb spun around. "Gabriel, what are you doing here?" Gabriel pulled a folder from his briefcase, the same briefcase Maya had noticed that first night on the bus. "Funny thing happened when I was cleaning out my office. I found some old paperwork." He handed documents to the police officer. 6 months ago, before I ever met these people, I created a shell company called Community Partners, LLC. That company purchased this property from the city through a private sale that predates Sterling Development's acquisition bid. Webb's face went red. "That's impossible. We own this building. Sterling Development owns the rights to develop this block, but they don't own this specific lot." Gabriel smiled. "I bought it as insurance back when I still thought like a businessman. I just forgot I had it until yesterday." Maya stared at him. "You owned the community center this whole time?" "Apparently. And as the legal owner, I'm hereby granting the community a permanent lease for $1 per year." The crowd erupted in cheers. Sophia ran to Gabriel and threw her arms around his waist. "Does this mean we're safe?" she asked. "You're safe, sweetheart." Webb was furious. "This is fraud. Have you used inside information?" "I used my own money to buy a piece of property. Check with legal, Harrison. It's all completely above board." As the bulldozers drove away and the crowd began to celebrate, Maya pulled Gabriel aside. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I forgot. When Sterling Development started targeting this area, I bought several properties as potential development sites. This was just one of them. It wasn't until I was packing up my office that I found the deed." "So you didn't orchestrate this whole thing?" Gabriel laughed. "Maya, if I'd been smart enough to orchestrate this, I wouldn't have resigned and thrown away my career for nothing." Maya kissed him, right there in front of everyone. When they broke apart, Sophia was grinning at them. "Are you going to get married?" she asked loudly enough for half the neighborhood to hear. Gabriel looked at Maya, then got down on one knee right there in the community center parking lot. He didn't have a ring, didn't have a plan, didn't have anything except the absolute certainty that this was right. "Maya Rodriguez, will you marry me?" Maya started crying and laughing at the same time. "You're proposing in a parking lot? It's where we had our first fight. Seemed appropriate." "Yes," she said, pulling him to his feet. "Yes, you ridiculous man." 6 months later, Gabriel's new company, Sterling Community Partners, had 3 major projects underway. Instead of luxury towers, he was building mixed-income housing that included community spaces, small business incubators, and green areas where kids could play safely. The community center had been renovated and expanded, with new classrooms, a commercial kitchen for job training programs, and a medical clinic that provided free basic care to uninsured families. Gabriel had taken a massive pay cut and worked twice as hard as he ever had at Sterling Development. He was also happier than he'd ever been in his life. The wedding was held in the community center's new chapel, a bright space filled with artwork from local kids and surrounded by a garden that Mrs. Chen had designed. Sophia served as maid of honor, walking down the aisle in a pink dress that matched her headscarf, which she still wore even though her hair had grown back thick and healthy. Maya's dress was simple but beautiful, bought with money she'd saved from her new job running the community center's family services program. Gabriel wore his best suit, but had Sophia's artwork pinned to his lapel instead of a traditional boutonniere. Marcus, who'd gotten his contracting license and was now Gabriel's construction partner, served as best man. Mrs. Chen played piano. Half the neighborhood was there, along with Gabriel's new business partners and the few former colleagues who'd supported his decision to choose principle over profit. During the ceremony, Gabriel looked out at the faces surrounding them, people who'd become family who'd taught him what real wealth looked like. When the pastor asked if anyone objected to the union, Sophia piped up, "I object to waiting any longer. Can they kiss now?" The laughter that filled the chapel was warm and genuine, the sound of a community celebrating love that had grown from the most unlikely beginnings. As Gabriel and Maya danced their first dance to music, played by teenagers from the center's new music program. Gabriel whispered in her ear, "Do you ever think about that night on the bus?" "Every day," Maya whispered back. "I fell asleep on a stranger's shoulder and woke up next to the love of my life." "I was thinking," Gabriel said, spinning her gently, "maybe we should take the bus to our honeymoon." Maya laughed. "Where are we going?" "I was thinking somewhere we can sleep on each other's shoulders for 8 hours straight." "That sounds perfect." Sophia ran up to them as the song ended. "Can I have the next dance, Gabriel?" "Always, kiddo." As Gabriel swept his new stepdaughter around the dance floor, Maya watched from the sidelines and marveled at how a single moment of exhaustion had led to this. A family, a community, a love story that proved the most extraordinary things could grow from the simplest human connections. Outside the chapel windows, the neighborhood bustled with life. The community center's lights glowed warmly, and through the glass you could see families gathering for evening programs, kids doing homework, and elderly neighbors playing chess. It was exactly what Gabriel had envisioned when he'd started his new company. Not just buildings, but places where people could build lives worth living. And it had all started with a tired woman falling asleep on a stranger's shoulder, and a lonely man learning that sometimes the best business decision is the one that has nothing to do with business at all. 5 years had passed since Maya first fell asleep on Gabriel's shoulder, and the 11 p.m. bus route had become their favorite way to end the day together. "Remember when you used to take this bus because you had to?" Gabriel asked, adjusting 2-year-old Daniel on his lap while Maya dozed against his shoulder, just like that first night. "I remember when you took this bus because you were too stubborn to call a driver," Maya murmured without opening her eyes. Sophia, now 11 and completely healthy, looked up from her homework across the aisle. "Are you two going to be gross and romantic the whole way home?" "Probably," Gabriel said, kissing the top of Maya's head. The bus passed the community center, now officially called the Maya and Gabriel Sterling Family Center, its windows glowing with evening activities. Through the glass, they could see Mrs. Chen teaching her computer class, teenagers working on college applications, and young parents attending parenting workshops. Gabriel's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Phoenix project approved. City Council voted unanimously. 12 more communities getting their own family centers." Sterling Community Partners had grown beyond anything Gabriel had imagined. What started as a single saved building had become a model replicated in cities across the country. Gabriel's approach, profitable development that strengthened communities instead of displacing them, had attracted investors who cared about social impact alongside financial returns. Maya now ran a non-profit that helped other communities fight gentrification and develop sustainable housing solutions. She'd been featured on magazine covers and invited to speak at conferences, but she still preferred working directly with families who reminded her of herself 5 years ago. "Mama," Daniel said, reaching for Maya as she sat up. "Story. What story do you want to hear, baby?" "Bus story." Sophia rolled her eyes. "He wants to hear how you and Gabriel met again." It had become Daniel's favorite bedtime story, the tale of the tired mama who fell asleep on the nice man's shoulder and woke up to find her family. "Well," Maya began, settling Daniel between her and Gabriel, "once upon a time there was a very tired mama who worked 3 jobs to take care of her little girl." Gabriel listened to Maya tell their story, editing out the parts about corporate greed and medical bills, focusing instead on the magic of 2 people finding each other when they needed it most. It never got old, this story of theirs. The bus pulled into their stop. Not the same neighborhood where Maya used to live, but not far from it either. They'd bought a house 3 blocks from the community center, close enough for Sophia to walk there after school and for Maya to pop in during her lunch breaks. As they walked home, passing neighbors who waved and called out greetings, Gabriel reflected on how completely his life had changed. He made less money now than he had as a ruthless developer, but he was richer in every way that mattered. "Gabriel?" Sophia fell into step beside him as Maya carried a sleepy Daniel ahead of them. "Yeah, kiddo?" "I'm doing a school project about heroes. Can I interview you?" Gabriel laughed. "I'm not a hero, Sophia. I'm just a guy who learned to make better choices." "That's what makes you a hero. You chose to be good when being bad was easier." Gabriel stopped walking and looked at this remarkable girl who'd become his daughter in every way that mattered. At 11, she was already wiser than he'd been at 30. "You know what the real truth is," Gabriel said. "Your mama saved me. I was lost, and she showed me the way home." Sophia smiled. "That's what heroes do. They save people." At home, after Daniel was asleep and Sophia was reading in her room, Gabriel and Maya sat on their back porch swing, the same one that had been at the community center before the renovation. "Do you ever miss it?" Maya asked. "The old life, the money, the power?" Gabriel considered the question seriously. "I miss the certainty sometimes, knowing exactly who I was and what I wanted. And now? Now I know who I am and what I want are two different things, and that's okay." Maya curled up against his side. "What do you want?" "This. Every day. For the rest of my life." A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only by the sounds of their neighborhood, kids playing in nearby yards, families finishing dinner, the distant hum of the bus route that had brought them together. "Gabriel." "I'm pregnant." Gabriel sat up so fast he nearly dumped Maya off the swing. "What?" Maya laughed at his expression. "I found out this morning. I was going to tell you at dinner, but Daniel was being cranky and then Sophia needed help with homework." Gabriel kissed her, soft and amazed. "Another baby?" "Another baby. Are you happy?" Gabriel thought about their life, the controlled chaos of family dinners, Sophia's soccer games, Daniel's bedtime stories, Maya's late-night phone calls from families in crisis, his own early mornings reviewing architectural plans for communities that would become homes for people who deserve dignity and hope. "I'm overwhelmed," he said honestly. "I'm terrified, I'm grateful, I'm happy." Gabriel pulled Maya close, thinking about the man he'd been 5 years ago, successful, lonely, building towers that reached toward the sky, but never touched the ground where real people lived their real lives. "Yeah," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm happy." Later that night, as Gabriel lay in bed listening to his family sleep around him, he thought about that first night on the bus. Maya had been exhausted from working 3 jobs to save her daughter's life. He'd been exhausted from working one job that was slowly killing his soul. Neither of them had been looking for love. They'd just been 2 broken people trying to make it through another day. But sometimes the most beautiful things grow in the spaces between exhaustion and hope, in the quiet moments when we let our guard down long enough to let someone else matter more than our own protection. Gabriel had learned that true success wasn't measured in dollars or square footage or quarterly reports. It was measured in Sophia's healthy laughter, in Daniel's sleepy snuggles, in Maya's hand in his as they rode the same bus route where their story began. It was measured in communities that thrived instead of communities that survived, in families who had safe places to grow, in the knowledge that some things, love, hope, the courage to choose compassion over profit, were worth more than all the luxury towers in the world. Outside their bedroom window, the community center's lights had finally gone dark, but Gabriel knew that tomorrow they'd come on again, welcoming new families who needed what Maya and Sophia had needed 5 years ago. A place to belong, people who cared, and the chance to build something better than what they'd left behind. Gabriel Sterling fell asleep holding his wife, dreaming of the bus route that had changed everything, grateful for the exhaustion that had brought them together and the love that had taught them both how to build a life worth living.